Welcome to Trustee Talk. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dick Murgatryod, and our guest today is Anderson Township Trustee and President of the Board of Trustees, Russ Jackson. Russ, it's been a while since we've been together, and
it has been.
Had a chance to
always
visit.
A pleasure, though.
And it is always my pleasure, too. And today we have a pretty serious conversation here, subject matter to talk about, and that is in the news. I know people probably have been reading about the Beech Acres situation and the sale perhaps of that property and what impact that's going to have on this area and especially I guess on the Anderson High School. So I'm going to turn it over to you and turn you loose.
It is there is a lot of talk, and the interesting thing is that if it happens, it would be wonderful. If it doesn't happen, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But it's kind of exciting, really, for the people, residents of Anderson Township. I think we need to back up a little, talk about how the whole thing started.
Yeah, that I think would be good.
We actually have three entities involved. You know, the Board of Trustees and the authority we have. You have the school board, very autonomous entity. Historically, the school board has not wanted to, over the years, collaborate a great deal. But in recent years, in the current board, hey, these people are very open to the whole topic. I think it was a matter of trust before. You know, we're here and you're there, and we don't know that we trust you. The park board's really different. People don't understand it. If you go back 30 years, there was a big fight in Anderson Township between the park board and the township trustees. And according to state law, they were able to spin out and become an autonomous entity. The only thing that stayed, that was retained according to the law, was that the Board of Trustees appointed the park board members, and at that time, the Board of Trustees had the authority over whether or not they could Park District could put a levy on the ballot. Those are the only things. Otherwise, they had their own budget. They did everything independently. So that's how this thing started to evolve. I don't remember the exact time frame, but earlier in the year, the park board came to our board. We met in exec session. You know, people get all excited about exec session, but when it comes to purchase of property, you got to have some protection, or there's no way you'd ever make a deal anyway.
Yes.
I know there are others that say, oh, that's outrageous. Well, it's not. It's the way it works. The law is very clear. Anyway, they came to us and said they wanted to buy Beech Acres, and that they had been in negotiations with the owners, with the Beech Acres folks, and had an agreement as to how much they would pay, and they wanted us to provide the funding for it. We showed them the error of their ways. Just didn't have that kind of money. You know, you plan. We spend so much time on future planning.
Absolutely.
It had never come up before. 20 minutes, you can't come up with $5.5 million. So, and we told them, hey, you know, you're going to have to figure out some other way to do it. At that time, interestingly, I had presented to them an idea that I knew would work and that our board had agreed would work, was a way in which they could have a developer buy 2/3 of the property, and we would TIF that property and use those TIF dollars to build them a new multiplex. Mm-hmm. And there wouldn't be any tax levy involved. It was a win-win for everybody. They really had no interest in that, didn't even ask for the details of it. So they came before our board sometime after that and requested that we approve the levy that they originally proposed. We then had to explain to them that the law had changed and that we no longer had authority to approve or disapprove levies. What happened was a change to the law said that if a park district owned property outside the township or the natural entity, mm-hmm. that then the natural entity no longer had any voice in the matter. Oh. They had been, actually some of it they purchased, and they owned a couple parcels in Fairfax. And therefore we told them we that we didn't have the authority to do it. But if we did have the authority, each of the board members stated at that meeting that it would not support this, what at that time was a very high levy request. They went back to the drawing boards after that and actually came forward with a modification of their levy plan and made it very public. Well, all of that, while all of that was going on, a developer had come to the school district and come to one of our trustees and presented a plan where the money that was going to be spent to repair Anderson High School could be spent as part of a package to build a brand new high school on the Beech Acres property, and that the property where Anderson is currently located would be developed in lovely, positive development. And these folks had this thing all laid out, and we subsequently had a joint meeting, Park District, School District, and the Township. We actually had two of them, exec session again, and discussed these proposals. The Park District was not excited about it because they weren't sure, and I think it was the developer wasn't clear enough on a lot of matters at that point, that it would solve what they wanted, because they wanted a new healthplex, or a recplex. Mm-hmm. And they really wanted all the property. Well, we went through that process, and as we're going down the line, the Park District had no other choice than to go ahead and put the levy on the ballot, even though they could, in fact, withdraw it later. But if they didn't do that, time would run out and they wouldn't be on the ballot. But the discussions continued. It's not an easy proposal if it works. There's just a lot of complications to it. It's not that I shouldn't say that it's outrageously complicated, it's just complicated. Mm-hmm. Not easy, who owns it, how do you do the tax dollars and all of those things. The basic thing was that the Park District would get a recplex, the developer would get this property and invest, he later said up to $120 million in it. The TIF dollars that would come out of that property would be used to participate in the school project. Basically, the township as a government was not gaining anything, wasn't losing anything based on that proposal. So that's how it's gone forward. In the meantime, Park District had to come forward and said, look, we're not participating anymore, and they in fact notified us all that they didn't want to talk about it anymore. And at that same time, then the folks at Beech Acres, rather important, they have to own the property, and they're going to they can sell it to anybody they want or not sell it. They could give it to them for that matter. Indicated that they were only going to sell it to the Park District. The only problem with that, from our perspective, is that what happens if their levy doesn't pass?
Right.
And we're back to square one.
Absolutely.
So with that, we are continuing to work with the school district, and we've also now been notified as of yesterday that the Park District has said, hey, they will continue to work too. So all the parties are trying to see if it can happen. If it can, it'll be great. Again, like I said before, if it doesn't happen, life will go on.
Well, yeah.
It is probably from the viewpoint of the people that you talk to when you have these boards together. Everyone has said the same thing. Hey, really would be great for Anderson Township if it could happen.
Absolutely, so, yeah, no question about it. I mean, and it sounds like a win-win for everybody involved.
Right.
Following that pattern that you've laid out.
The thing, I have worked with the folks at Beech Acres, just wonderful people over all the years. Their whole, I hate to call it business, but their business has really changed, and they've evolved into satellite offices rather than this, what was originally was an orphanage, but they haven't done that in many years. Yeah. but they serve parents, they serve families, and they have a great mission. The one thing that they wanted, and Anderson Township is not really an ideal location for them.
Yeah.
It's a nice location, beautiful campus there, but in terms of where their market is further into Clermont County, and down there. They want to move their headquarters down to somewhere along I-75
okay. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
centralized. They've got 4 or 5, I think at least 3 or 4, these satellite offices that they bought. And but the big thing about the Beech Acres site is that they have always been dedicated to the fact that whatever happens to that property must be consistent with their mission. And I respect them for that. Now, whether it's
yeah.
a covenant when it was originally obtained or whatever, that makes sense to me. They want to serve children. So that's why serving as a park is appropriate. I believe serving as a school
Oh,
is
absolutely.
appropriate.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Now, other things that might not be so consistent with their mission, but they have control of the situation.
Well, and you know, as I said, you know, it's such a great piece of property, and the location is just you know, a perfect location, basically for the high school, I would think, and also for the Parks District as far as that complex that they want to put in. I mean, it's very centrally located in Anderson Township. So
They have, you know, the Park District and part of the property that they currently own have a wonderful park facility. In fact, we were talking before about the grandchildren being in town. We took them over there, and it was absolutely wonderful. It had a nice facility, and that would all stay. And
now, is that part of Beech Acres now? Is it?
Yes,
Part on
yes,
Beech
it's on the
Acres
part
now?
over where the Fireman's Memorial
okay, yeah.
is, and
Okay, now
that's
I know where-
off
yeah.
the Salem
Yeah,
Road
yeah,
site.
yeah.
The Recplex itself needs to be, I guess we'll use the term upgraded. It needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
That is a facility that's very popular and could be even more popular if it was rebuilt.
Well, and more, I mean, I think we've talked before on previous shows that how important that green space and parks is to a city or a township,
Right.
because of the fact that there's just such a need for somewhere for, especially to be able to service children and families.
Absolutely.
And people, and that people look for that. I think that's a big factor in
Right.
drawing people into the area.
We, you know, our Economic Development Committee has talked about it a number of times, and you know, it's their desire that any property is advanced to its highest and best use. And of course, they don't think that a park is. They probably don't even think a school is the highest and best use, but we're talking about taking something else and making it highest and
Right.
best use. But it is a premier location and beautiful campus, and you wouldn't want to ruin that ambiance that it has.
No, because I mean it really is. But I think you could create a really beautiful, still be a beautiful campus. I mean for the
absolutely.
high school and
Yes.
for the Parks District and then where Anderson is now. That's going to turn into something very
That
nice
would be
also
very
for
nice. Yes.
Anderson Township. So
The real couple of sticking points from the township's viewpoint as we move forward on the plan is that if the township gives up all the potential TIF dollars from it, now we will get the regular tax dollars, but not the TIF dollars to invest. We don't have anything left to do anything for the infrastructure. We couldn't build any roads or any of those things. They're estimating $7-10 million worth of expense there.
is that right?
You know, it's just
It's a lot.
we wouldn't have those funds to spend. The backside of the issue is, and the downside of the thing, is that we can't put the taxpayers of Anderson Township at risk on this thing.
No.
So if somebody is borrowing the money and signing on the dotted line, it can't be the taxpayers of Anderson Township. And that's been the real sticking point for us, is how how do we get a third party? And they seem to say they have them, but you know, you have it when
Well,
it's
yeah,
when it's
when
there.
it's actually there.
Right.
Yeah. Actually, when they sign on the dotted line.
Yeah, that's right.
That makes the difference. Yeah.
But that is a major issue. We just can't put the taxpayers at risk.
And by allocating those TIF dollars to that particular project, how long of a period then are you're going to be unable to use any TIF for anything else?
Well, for those funds would be for the life of the funding, which I would guess 30 years.
Yeah.
Now, we would receive tax dollars based on the minimum TIF value. It's the money over and above that.
Yep.
So our portion of it, our 14.5 cents or whatever out of every dollar on the regular taxing would come to us. So we would be generating dollars to cover safety, or help us cover safety issues.
Right.
So.
Well, because you've got a lot of things on the books now, but I assume that those are covered already as far as a lot of this development that's happening now, and a lot of this infrastructure that's got to go along with that development.
All of it. You know, we have plans. We try to use our money wisely. There are some projects we keep pushing back, but you know, we have always we've had one tax levy in 15 years.
That's pretty good.
Don't plan to have one next year, so that'll be one in 16 years. What we have been doing the last 2 years, or this year, and we'll be doing next year, is we're subsidizing the fire and safety fund with TIF dollars. We have the authority to do that. That was a change that, thanks to Tom Brinkman, we were able to get the House to allow us to do, and that is that we can actually borrow from ourselves out of our TIF fund to subsidize it. But you know, we have our long-term debt is 6 years. So
Not bad.
in 6 years we'll have everything paid for. We have a AAA Moody's bond rating.
Which
aren't too many.
I was going to say, not too many of those out there.
Not too many of those out there. So
I keep hearing
we must be doing something.
You all are doing something very right, because I hear the horror stories from other cities and that are really struggling, because boy, once that bond rating goes down, that really has an impact.
Yes, and it's so hard to get back up.
Yes,
that's why we work so hard to maintain that rating. We did get reconfirmed earlier this year for that AAA. They do check from time to time.
Yeah.
So, not that we plan to use it, but it's good to have.
But it's always nice to have. It's always nice to have that rating for sure. And I guess this project will not impact really what you have on the books now anyway, as far as
not at all.
The trustees are concerned, as far as the township's concerned. So
all the good things that are happening are happening. You know, the corner at the Kroger property.
Right.
Across the street, I don't know if you've read about over on the other side of
Yes.
Wolfangle, they'll be tearing down those buildings and building a facility. We got, let's say, a lot of very positive things happening.
Oh, you're
the
right, yeah.
facility at Witt Road, where Dewey's Restaurant is, and a couple others, you know, those are about to open. All our new restaurants seem to be doing well. Movie theater project should be breaking ground anytime.
Oh,
May have
really?
already started. That'll change the whole backside of the Anderson Town
yeah.
Center, because that property back there is pretty well dormant, has been.
Yeah.
Taking down half of the Kmart building and then building a whole row of businesses, relocating the ring road in the back. We even have possibility of the property where the old garage movie theater was originally going to be on the hillside. So
okay.
a lot of things are happening.
Well, I mean,
So.
Beechmont's looking great. I mean, that where the Dewey's is coming in, and that went up pretty fast, and the donuts. Krispy Kreme
Krispy Kreme, yeah.
was a major success. think-
Arthur's, the Anderson Township Pub and Grill, those places are booming.
They're doing
and
great, and
that's-
but that really says a lot, and you're happy to see that, because when you get people using those places and going to those places,
They're staying in the
They're staying
township,
in the
spending their
township,
money
right.
in the township, and that was the real problem. Is we never had those things to offer, so people had to drive
Yeah,
Newport
go
on the
somewhere
Levee or somewhere else to find a nicer restaurants
Absolutely.
and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, all of a sudden we're getting plenty, and we still have the same amount of people here.
Yeah, but they're using it, and
Yeah.
and that makes a difference. And Belterra, I understand that's coming
Doing
along,
very well.
Doing
Yes,
well.
doing well, and we're getting. Oh, there's another great restaurant down
That's what I
there
heard,
that was modified from an old restaurant, but it really doing a booming business, and we're getting a lot of interest in that whole corridor. I would expect to see a hotel there within a year, maybe 2 hotels in that corridor.
Which will be a boom for that.
Which would be a boom.
Yeah, I mean, really would be.
And then on the other side, there's no question that we're going to see probably empty nester type housing, condos on that hillside, the river hillside, all the way
That's a
down
perfect
to
spot.
all the way down to 8 Miles. So it's coming.
Well, I mean, there is a lot going on, and I think this particular project. Is there any timeline? I mean, I guess you can't really put
Well,
one
that's
on
been
it.
the problem. The timeline is definitely the problem, because the school district has to either repair the old one or build a new one. And this project really is messing them up, because they have delayed the remodeling
Right.
of the existing school in exchange for making this thing happen. Apparently, they have worked out a way that they can do it, because they're still supporting making this work if they can make it work. So it has that much potential. But that's really the timeline, is based on whether they can do it. And of course, again, the folks who own Beech Acres have to.
I was just
have
going
to
to say,
agree
I mean,
to it,
are
so.
they under any kind of a timeline as far
Not-
as wanting
not
to
at all,
have
no.
to
No,
do
they
something, or have to need the money that they're going to
They
need
don't,
for?
no,
Okay,
not
so-
at all. And that's been the great thing.
Which
These
is
people
good.
have- yes. So there's no sense of urgency on their part. The 2 urgent things is whether or not the Park District goes ahead with having its tax levy, which in the first week of November, first Tuesday after the first Monday in November, and the school district, when they have to cut bait.
So as you said earlier, they've got to get that on. It's got to be in place to get on the ballot for
Yeah,
that.
that they did,
Yeah.
yes.
So they've done that.
But they can withdraw it.
Yeah. Now,
they wish.
if I guess if, let's say, if this thing drags out and nothing happens before November, and the levy is on there, if that levy passes, how does that change the entire
Well,
picture at that point?
they would have the money to do it, but by that time, good Lord, I hope that
You've got it resolved.
something has resolved
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the rest
So
of the
if-
matter.
So if that levy passes, then I guess they would basically buy Beech Acres.
Buy Beech Acres.
All
Right.
of it.
Yes.
And then that puts
That's
the
correct.
school in.
Yeah, the
back
problem
where it
that
is
they
now.
have with, and when they went back, and I mentioned how they had gone back to a different levy proposal, was that there isn't a lot of money there. There's no money there to build a new one. So basically, they would own the property, but then they have to figure out how they're going to do something with the existing facility, because they don't have the money to do it.
So that would be another issue, then they would have.
Big
to figure-
issue,
so
yes.
even though they own the
Right.
property, they're still not going to end up with what they, really the reason why they're buying that property in
Right.
the first place, because they would not have any finances.
Right. They would be property owners, that's for sure. It's
Yeah.
a lovely spot for them, but they wouldn't have the funding. That's the problem they had with the Johnson Park property that they have. Big piece of property over there. They've never been able to
develop it.
garner the funds to do much with it. Although there are a lot of people who would prefer that it be left in a pristine state,
Well,
but
yes.
that's their decision, whatever
Yeah.
they want to do with it. I know they have plans to develop it, but they don't have the money.
And
So-
that's always a problem. Not only that, but then you've got to also maintain it.
And yes, yeah. It's
I mean that's just more.
well, yes, and it takes people, it takes operations,
Right.
it takes a lot of things. So
Yeah, so that is the stumbling block
Right.
when you get into those kind of things, because it's great to have the space, but if you're not going to be able to put it to use or maintain it the way it should be, you're kind of between a rock and a hard place again.
absolutely.
So the ideal thing would be for this deal to go through as you have explained it. Hopefully that the groups can come together and.
Well, that's the great thing about this, and that's what I said in the very beginning, is that, no matter what happens here, to have the parties working together for a common purpose. I almost said common cause, and then I was going to get sick, so that's a common purpose. Having them work together is really great. So refreshing just to have.
Well, and I think, that's a good thing. I mean, I think that's the way you get those things to
Well,
happen.
taxpayers, over the years have always, wondered, why, they pay all this money to the government. So,
Well, yeah, and that's the, but and again, I think the beauty of it is that if this happens, the taxpayers aren't really going to feel anything at all, other than they're going to realize that they're going to have a really great project there that's going to be a very positive project.
that is correct. It
And
would not
that's-
cost the taxpayers anything.
Right,
And
right.
that's refreshing in this
Well,
day
in this day and age, it is. Well, and the fact that if because if the levy passes, then the taxpayers are going to be
Then the taxpayers
challenged
are.
one more time.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely correct.
Well, I wish you the very best. I think the pleasant part about it is that you're all talking, and that I've been in situations where that wasn't the case, and then it becomes very difficult for anything to happen.
What was it that Mark Twain said? When you're talking, you ain't listening.
That's right. But anyway, we'll be watching and to
Good.
see what happens, and appreciate your kind of clearing a lot of things up. I think people will find that more.
I hope so.
More helpful.
I mean, it's all so positive. And
Yeah,
everybody
it really
wants
is.
it to happen if we can make it happen.
It really is. And
You can't oversimplify it.
No,
It's
no.
a lot of complications.
Well, yeah, and nothing's easy, but it's worth the effort if you can, like you said, you can make it.
As long as you don't do anything stupid.
Yes.
You can't put the taxpayers at risk.
No.
That's
Not
the
with that
problem.
big a
And
project.
That's with any project. You really can't, and
No.
that's you can't say, oh well, we have to have it, so you got to take. No, sorry.
It is. It's an exciting project, and if anybody can get it done, I have a feeling you can help
We'll
move that
try.
forward. You can move that forward.
We'll try. We're just the facilitator.
There you
That's
go.
our job. Our job's a facilitator.
Which is not a bad one.
Yeah, well, that's
Well, it
good.
is always a
Yeah.
pleasure. It's good to see you again.
You
As
too,
I
Dick.
said, it's been a while,
Thanks.
so I hope it's not so long until we do it again. We want to thank you all for joining us for this edition of the Trustee Talk, making us part of your day. We hope the rest of your day goes well. And on behalf of Shane Reinert, who's our producer and director for this event, and all of us here at ACTV, I'm Dick Murgatryod, and we invite you to join us again for the next edition of Trustee Talk here on ACTV. Thanks for being with us.